And hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. And again, as always, thanks so much for being here. Well, I have the pleasure of having Art Lipuma here today, who's a writer and a wine expert. And Art, thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
I'm so
Pleasure
glad that you
being
could
here.
make it to the station. A writer and a wine expert, kind of over here and over there, and then on the same page, they're kind of together. But what I'd like to do in the beginning, before we get into that, is talk about your background. Take us back. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I started when I was 20, and just by accident as just a temporary job for as I was going to college. And I enjoyed it, and the first few months I wasn't able to try anything because I was under 21, but I just developed a taste for wine, and I enjoy teaching people about wine and stuff. So I do like the whole idea of it.
And I will say, just to state it, that you are the general manager of Seaside Wines and Spirits in Old Saybrook. So you are working in the industry as well. But was wine something that was important in your life as you started getting older? Did you want to stay with it? Do you enjoy it?
Yes, I do enjoy it. It was one of those things where you started and then you enjoyed it more and more as you went along, and I'm able to try different wines all the time, which is great, and meet people from wineries, and they actually come into the shop and try to sell their wine, but winemakers, and I just learned to listen to them rather than necessarily read a book or something on it, because they have the best knowledge, obviously.
Wines in general, do you prefer white or red?
Red.
Tell us why.
I like the flavor. There's more body to it. Just pairs with more food, I think. But white wines have their place, and they're very good. And the big deal now is rosés, which I do enjoy. I'd rather actually have a rosé than a white wine. But and there's so many vast rosés now. It's amazing.
There's probably a lot of viewers who love wine but don't know much about it. Is there a region in the United States or around the world that you prefer for the grapes? How is wine made?
Well, wine is made, basically, obviously they grow the grapes. The winemakers, they have their own chemistry ideas of how they're going to either crush the grapes, sometimes in bundles, sometimes just separately. It all makes a different product, so it's very vast as far as what you can do with it. It's not just one aspect of it.
How is the wine industry in general? Is the United States selling more wine? Is Europe selling more wine? Where is the wine industry mostly?
I think Europe has always sold, a great deal of wine, but I think more and more the Americans are buying more and more wine these days than in the past.
You are asked to speak at different functions. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I do in-home tastings. I like to, just explain and just sort of educate people on a lighter note, not like make it like, class. Because after 3 or 4 wines, I lose them anyways. So, it's always fun.
Tell us the difference between a red wine and a rosé.
Well, rosés actually are made from red grapes. It's the skin contact that gives it the light color. So basically, if you see a rosé, it's definitely made with like a red grape, Pinot Noir. Sometimes they blend some white grapes in there too. But basically, it's all about the skin contact that makes it, and it's lighter, less tannic.
The viewer that might be interested in tasting a wine, what are your recommendations to get started?
It's basically you just pick a few bottles, not expensive, so something in the $5 to $10 range maybe, or something like that, and just see how you like the styles. Like pick like 2 or 3 different whites or 2 or 3 different reds to see what you like better, because some reds are heavier than others, some are lighter. Like Pinot Noir is a lighter red. or something from France, like a Beaujolais is lighter style, and versus a Cab or a Bordeaux.
Your writing, tell us about that.
Basically, I write articles for the local Ink magazine and the Shoreline Events magazine, and it's just small articles just to give an idea of, different areas maybe I'll focus on, or different grapes, and it's just a little education. That's all it is.
How do you get educated?
Like I said previously, basically more on, I'll read up on, like if I'm writing something, but also just listening to the people that come into the store and educate me, as far as I'll ask them questions and stuff and that sort of thing.
How about somebody, you had mentioned a class in New York City that you had gone in and studied. How does somebody get started in the wine industry?
Yeah, well, basically, the Kevin Zarelli still runs his class in New York City, and that's I think it's like 6 or 8 weeks long. It's like like one day a week, and I used to take the train into New York, and it's very educational, and it's very, it's lighthearted, so it's easier to learn that way sometimes, and you taste wine and compare notes and stuff with the class, and it's very educational.
Is there a way to get to know wine and taste wine without getting drunk, inebriated? I mean, how does somebody taste a wine and get the feeling that it's a good one?
Yeah, I mean, it's easily, it's having a few sips rather than having a glass of each wine.
Right.
So that's a big difference, and yeah, you could easily do it without just sampling wines. Sometimes, we do charity tastings, or you can go to a charity tasting and taste a bunch of wines, and that's kind of a good way to start, because not only are you contributing to the charity, you're also having a little fun and exploring your wine taste.
That's a good question. How does somebody find a way to be able to go and taste wines? Is there a directory online as to where to go in the state, word of mouth? How does somebody find out?
Usually, yeah, it's word of mouth. A lot of the local ones, people put posters up and whatnot, and that sort of thing, or be advertised in a newspaper, local newspaper, that such and such is having a charity wine tasting for, and basically that's the best way to do it.
Is a charity wine tasting?
Yeah, absolutely.
How about the liquor stores themselves? I mean, are they prone to have wine tastings as well?
Yes, we do tastings every Saturday.
You do?
Yeah,
Okay.
So, it helps out, and, whether you like the wine or not, you can make your choice. Oh, well, that was a great wine, and, I'll get some of that, or maybe it's like, that's not my style, or whatever. So at least that, limits you as far as your reaction on the different wines, and you can feel that, okay, well, that I'll get that next time, or I'll get that style of wine next time, because that's what I like.
You're writing. How did somebody decide to find you to write something for them? Are you hired?
Well, I'm not really, I'm not paid for it. Basically, it's just a charity thing I do for, the towns. So if, someone, like the Shoreline Events magazine, they'll come in to me, do you want to do an article, this month or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, sure,
And Ink magazine, tell us about that.
Yeah, that's sort of the same way. I used to do a lot of articles for them, not as much recently, but it's good, and people learn from that. So,
what's the future of wines look like? I mean, is it something to drink? Is it going to stay with us for hundreds of years?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been around for that long, if not longer, and it'll be around that much more. Yeah, and obviously, everything affects the wines. I mean, fires and the weather and everything else. So that determines if you're going to have a good vintage or not.
That's a really good question. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, California, with all their smoke from the fires and stuff. Some wineries, in fact, the real high-end wineries, decided not to even to do a vintage if it was smoke tainted, so because they didn't want to put their reputation on the line. So they just kept it for, this is what happened, 2020 or whatever. So so they determined not to do it. And, like I said, the weather too, drought and all that stuff affects wines.
Now, this show is based in the state of Connecticut, and there's the Connecticut Wine Trail. What do you think about that?
It's good. We have a good amount of wineries here, and there's small wineries opening up all the time. But that doesn't get to retail as much because they don't produce enough wine, or but they have a lot of tastings at their places, and the wine is actually very good.
To the viewer that's out there that would like to get into the industry, maybe that has some land or thinks that they're going to be this great vineyard owner and make their own wine, do you have any advice as to how to get started?
Not really on the winery part. I know it does take quite a while to plant the grapes, obviously to produce grapes, and most places they say it's at least 6 or 7 years. But it's all worth doing if that's your passion is. You just gotta have patience.
Is there space that's out here on the shoreline that would have any opportunity to do something? Well, we've got one in Clinton, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. You've got like 2 or 3 in Stonington and Mystic, which is right, usually it's not directly on the shoreline itself, but inward a little bit. But so they're all over the place. I mean, there's a lot of wineries that, they got a whole little booklet on all the wine trail. So there's quite a few.
Is there a way to be able to travel the United States and follow a wine trail? Is there something like that?
I haven't seen anything like that, but there's certainly enough wineries. I think there's wines in I'm just guessing maybe at least 45 states.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, almost everybody grows grapes somewhere in each state, yeah.
What is predominantly the wine that people drink? Is it white? Is it rosé?
It depends on the season, I think. More people drink white and rosé in the summer. It's more refreshing. And then the red is, more in the winter months. But people will, if they like Cabernet, red wine, they'll just drink it all year round. It doesn't really matter to them. But basically, I'd say it depends on the season.
Okay, let's hold that thought. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
You matter.
You matter.
You matter.
And your words matter too.
Your words matter.
What you say in the hallways at school or in the student section at a game matters.
Words can be hurtful.
Words can be offensive.
Words can leave scars.
Words can also inspire.
Support and uplift.
You and your words.
Are they both important?
As a matter of fact, yes.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide, it provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
unfiltered,
reliable, and yours.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and I hope that you're enjoying the show. We continue on with Art Lipuma. And Art, to the viewer, and I've got them in all ages. I've got my teenagers and young people all the way up to my elder statesmen. And probably some are saying, I don't know, do I want to taste wine? Do I want to venture forth and try something besides having my gin and tonic or besides having my martini? What would be your advice for somebody to go out and try a glass?
Well, you can, wine companies meal very well. So basically, if you're at a restaurant, maybe you can have someone help you, one of the wait staff to help you, well, what wine would go with this dish, and start it that way. because a wine does do really well, it pairs really well with food. So that's one way to start.
Your speaking engagements, how does somebody find you to do something like that?
Usually they come into the store, basically, and like I said, we have quite a selection, so we have like over 2,000 wines. So it's easier for me too to select different wines that, they might come in and I'll say, well, what style, what kind of tasting do you want? Do you want to do wines around the world? Do you want to do just rosés? Do you want, So I give them their option on kind of an idea of what they want, and then I'll pick the wines accordingly. So it's it's a fun experience.
And you get to taste the wines in the store how?
Through the salespeople and through the reps. Like I said, the winemakers or wine owners will come in.
Oh, they will?
Yeah.
I see, okay. And then you have a tasting every Saturday?
Correct. And that's, like I said, that's the best way. You can come in and taste different, taste a few different wines and get an idea. Do you like wine, or do you want to go back to, Scotch? So,
Is it hard to be somebody such as yourself, a wine expert and a writer, to be able to write about wine? I mean, how does somebody get involved in writing about something that they love?
Well, yeah, it's easier for me because, I've learned quite a bit. I don't ever consider myself a wine expert, though, but I learned quite a bit because you can never know enough about wine. There's just so much to learn. It's amazing. And, but I think, learning a lot through people talking and about their wines and whatever. So it's easier for me, and then, I'll go to some books to get some direct information that I want to use in the article itself. So, yeah, it's not as bad as just going blankly through,
Do you want to write any more? Is that something you'd like to do more of?
I like to do it the way I'm doing it, periodically. Yeah. And I just think that's, it's pleasing to me, and I don't want it to make it like, a task.
How long have you been writing?
Probably maybe about at least 10 years.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
That
and
long?
like I said, it's just small articles, so.
How about a wine cellar, or how do people store things in their home?
Yeah, the best way is in a basement if you don't have refrigerators, wine refrigerators, because the temperature is more consistent. That's what's most important. Is it doesn't matter if it gets a little cooler or a little hotter, as long as it's pretty consistent. You don't want to put it above your stove because that's going to ruin the wine in a very short time.
That's an interesting point, where you put the bottle.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you don't have air conditioning, you leave it on the counter for quite a while, it's not going to hold up too well. Especially if you open it, once you open wine, it's got shelf life of like 3 or 4 days, maybe, maybe it depends on the wine. If you refrigerate it, maybe up to a week, for white wine and stuff. But you don't want to keep it, in a warm house.
I don't think that people realize
itself,
that there is a shelf life to it.
Well, once you open it, yeah, for sure.
Once you open it.
And there is for non-open wines, sure. Yeah, I mean, you get a white that's, if it's not noted for aging and it's like 10 years old, it's probably no good. And you could tell by the color. White wines get darker and red wines get lighter.
Huh.
Typically, yeah.
Really? Is it a good seller in general, or is alcohol a better seller?
I think wine is definitely a better seller, yeah.
Why do you think so?
I think more people will have, obviously, wine for dinner and then casual drinking rather than, like the harder liquor like whiskey and stuff. I mean, a lot of people don't have whiskey for dinner and, to go with a meal or anything. So that's probably why in general.
Do you think that there will be more wineries opening in the nation. I mean, granted, we just talked about the state of Connecticut, and probably that's established what's here. Do you think they'll be more open in the state?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, you
yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Where do you think?
They're so scattered in Connecticut. I really, I couldn't hazard a guess of exactly where the new ones would pop up, but I think there would be more. Yeah.
Any place in the United States that is better than the other?
Well, California probably is number one, I would say, and then Washington State, Oregon, in the United States.
Is that because of the land?
I think it's the climate, the land, and yeah.
And the land.
Yeah.
Is it an industry that's worthwhile financially?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But again, you have to have a lot of money sometimes to make a lot of money. So it's very costly to start up a winery.
Is it?
Yeah.
What have you heard any dollar figures as to how much?
I have not, and I really never got into that. But basically, yeah. I mean, I know it's pretty expensive.
And then,
and like I said, you have to have time and money for that.
Time and money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And probably the dedication to stay with it for years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you make that decision.
Yeah, some of these, go through family, time over and over. So.
Yeah. Do you think that you're going to stay in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely.
You happy?
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Do you have a wine cellar at home?
Yeah, a small one. Nothing in particular, but.
Are you a drinker of wine?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's your favorite?
Yeah.
I guess to the viewer, probably has some questions about getting started if they were going to start visiting places, having wine, so on and so forth. Do they ask somebody in a restaurant or a country club what they should be doing? Trying something in particular? What are your thoughts?
Well, for visiting, you mean, or?
If they were going to try a wine to get started.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, the maitre d' at a restaurant, or your server. I mean, they should have an idea of what wine would go. They're usually pretty educated. Would go with whatever dish they were serving. So, or you were ordering.
Did you ever think about going to a restaurant or to a hotel to give a speaking engagement?
No, I haven't done that yet. No.
Just to private functions?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And how does it look for private functions? Do you find that people want to talk to you? Have you come and talked to them?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think everybody wants to learn, about wine. A lot of people do, and they're excited about it, and they just want to know a little more of what they're tasting and what they're drinking.
Tours. Are there tours throughout the nation or throughout the world to try different wines? Any thoughts of what you've encountered along the way?
I haven't seen any tours per se, but I was out to California once, and I did my own tasting out there, but it was not in a tour. But there are tours out there for sure, California. Yeah.
How was it to be in California and do that?
It was very nice. Yeah.
Did you decide where you were going to go and what you were going to do when you were there?
Yes. Oh no, before. You really got to plan it out, because you got to. I mean, it's best to make appointments at wineries because they're so busy, and certain times of the year it's a little tougher for them. Like, now maybe September when it's harvest time, they don't really want to, they're so busy that they can't give you really a good attention that they could earlier in the year.
So the appointments are with the wine owners and a private showing, or
not necessarily, just tastings. Some wineries are very picky and they want to know you're coming, and so on and so forth. And some you could just drop in. It depends on where you want to go.
Okay, really? Okay. Well, we're starting to run out of time. Any closing thoughts for the viewers as to how to get started, either writing about wines, Or
I mean, the best thing is just to, read up on it and come up with your own, ideas about the wine with what you learn, and taste a lot of wine, because that's the best experience, is to taste the wines, so you know what you're getting and what each grape tastes like and the difference.
Well, thank you. It's been very informative.
You're welcome.
I
Thank
appreciate
you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And thanks so much to you for being here today. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. Hope you have a super day. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.